안녕하세요, 여러분. It's your Korean Sam, and today we're going to talk about death. But for real though, there are so many ways to say that someone died in Korean. By so many, I mean literally dozens of ways to say that someone died. And you don't want to use the wrong word in, whatever situation. So to save you the embarrassment, I made this video. And obviously, I'm not going to go through all 30 something, I don't know, like dozens of ways to say to die in Korean. I'm just going to stick to the essentials, the ones that you really, really need to know. Believe it or not, we probably use the word die a lot in everyday conversation, whether it's about death in general, whether it's about the death of friends or family members, or about your pet, or things, or famous people, celebrities, yada yada yada. So let's learn which word to use when. So the first and most basic way to say to die is 죽다. This is the neutral die, and it's a conversational word, so that you use it in speech, everyday conversation, and it's neither offensive nor like super respectful. It's just die. For example, 사람은 죽으면 어디로 갈까요? When you're just talking about death in general. Or you can also use 죽다 for non-human things. For example, if your character in a game died, you can say 죽다. Or if some sort of character in a movie that you're watching or any fictional character dies, you say 죽다. Or if your pet died, you can say 강아지가 죽었어요. Or you can use it for your computer or your phone. My phone died. 휴대폰이 죽었어요. Or 핸드폰이 죽었어요. Etc. You can use it for fire. 불이 죽었어요. The fire died down. Or if your watch stopped working, you can say 시계가 죽었어요. So anything that's not really a person, if it dies, then you just use that neutral term for die, which is 죽다. The next word we are learning today is 사망하다. Now, 사망 is 한자. It's a Sino-Korean word that means 죽다. It's the same thing except it's 한자. And if you don't know already, 한자 is the word that you use for more formal situations. So it's something that you might see in newspaper articles for people that died. Or, for example, a death certificate would be called 사망신고서 in Korean. So in documents, articles, like medical terminology, like 사망 원인 would be cause of death. So these formal situations is where you would use 사망하다 instead of 죽다. Also, 사망 itself can be used as a noun to mean death, and 사망하다 is a verb that means to die. The third way to say that someone died is 돌아가시다. It's a euphemism that means to die, and literally it means to go back to where someone came from. So 돌아가시다 is used in a respectful manner. So when you are talking about the death of someone that is much older than you or in a higher social position, then you would say 돌아가시다 instead of 죽다. For example, for your grandparents or your parents or your boss or teacher or someone like that. For example, 저희 할머니는 3년 전에 돌아가셨어요. 돌아가셨어요. That would be an example of how you conjugate. So this is also kind of conversational. So 죽다 and 돌아가시다 are conversational. One is neutral, one is respectful, and then you have 사망하다, which is also neutral but used in a more formal setting. So in my opinion, for conversation, these three are pretty much the only words that you need to know when you're talking about death. However, you're going to see a lot of different vocabulary words that all mean to die in various newspaper articles or blogs or titles and things like that. So we're just going to go over a few more that you might not necessarily use yourself in conversation, but it's good to know the meaning so that you understand it when you come across it in everyday life. So number 4 is 별세하다. 별세하다 is another Sino-Korean word, and it means to separate from this world. Again, it's a different euphemism to mean death. And this one is also used very respectfully for someone who was a prominent figure in society or someone who is extremely old. And there are a lot of other similar Sino-Korean words that are used in this way that are, it's hanja, it's used for someone who is a lot more older or deserves more respect. And there are just so many in this area. Okay, so I'm just gonna throw out a couple more as an example. So aside from 별세, there is 작고, 영면, 타게, 소천, and I am not even going to go through all of those. I'm just gonna list them here, take a look at them. So 별세 is something I see a lot in the news, and then for the rest, I don't think I need to explain like what exactly the differences are for every single word. Just know that they are words used respectfully, and these words come up a lot in funeral invitations. So when you invite someone to a funeral and you introduce the person who's deceased, then you use one of these like fancy hanja words to respectfully say that someone passed away. So you're not gonna use them in conversation, but just know that there are all these different words, and I am just barely scratching the surface. There are so many, but I'm just gonna leave it at here for today. One more word though that I'm going to teach you is 서거하다, and this is also one of those respectful Sino-Korean words, but these days it's exclusively used for like presidents. So it's like respect of a whole other level. In the news, I've only seen it used for presidents, but yeah, it's that like super high level of respect. So if you see like a 서거 10주년 or something like that, just know that 서거 also means death, but like for a really, really important person. These are all the words that I'm going to be sharing with you today. But again, like I said before, the first three, 죽다, 사망하다, 돌아가시다, these three are pretty much all you need to know for everyday conversation. Just remember to use 돌아가시다 in conversation when you need to be a bit more respectful. And lastly, I'm going to teach you not a vocabulary word, but a phrase. So what do you say when you hear the news of someone's death? Like, what is the go-to saying? Like in English, we say, oh, I'm sorry for your loss, something like that. So how do you say that in Korean? Now, the phrase in Korean is 삼가 고인의 명복을 빕니다. 삼가 고인의 명복을 빕니다. Now, what does this mean? 삼가 is an adverb that means respectfully, humbly. So I say this to you with respect. 고인 is the word, another Sino-Korean word that refers to the deceased person. 명복을 빕니다. 빌다 means to wish something, and 명복 is talking about the fortune after death. So 삼가 고인의 명복을 빕니다 means I respectfully wish the deceased person fortune after death. So by fortune, I don't know if they mean some sort of life after death or if it's the underworld, but generally, I hope they have found peace and fortune and happiness after death. If you break it down, it's quite a beautiful saying rather than I'm sorry for your loss. So this phrase is not about grieving, but for wishing the deceased person fortune after death. And that is all I have for today. This video was about the different vocabulary words and phrases that have to do with death. Death is as inevitable as taxes and some other thing. I forgot what it was. But anyway, it's good to know these vocabulary words to, you know, enrich and enhance your Korean conversation. So if you agree with that, then give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to Your Korean Saem for more Korean language related videos. Then I will see you in the next one. 다음 영상에서 만나요.